Summary. While continuing their travels, Hunter and Survivor run into a useful ally with a short fuse. Chapter 15, The Red Death. Survivor inched forward into the room, Hunter following close behind with Glimmer, lighting up the surroundings. Getting a closer look at one of the bodies, it appeared to have been scorched, as if it had been caught in a fire or explosion, perhaps? Glancing at another one, this one's cause of death was its throat getting ripped out, with several stab wounds visible on the body. Survivor shuddered, looking away and continuing his walk towards the dropped lantern. Hunter stopped to study one of the bodies for a moment. This wasn't a predator, he said after a moment, prompting Survivor to glance at him and wordlessly telling him to elaborate. The red slugcat took a deep breath, taking a nervous glance around the room they were currently in. These scavengers, they'd been ripped to shreds. This was personal, every death was personal. Survivor shuddered again, finally reaching the lantern and leaning down to pick it up. This will be useful, he said, studying the lantern for a moment and cringing slightly when he noticed parts of it were splattered with scavenger blood. His mate walked up behind him, looking over his shoulder. After a moment, he glanced down at Glimmer, trembling fearfully in his paws, as if it had noticed the death and destruction around it. So, do I let this glorified light source go then? Survivor turned around, looked at Hunter, then down at Glimmer, then at Hunter again, before pouting. But Glimmer is our pet. It's still a wild animal, Survivor. The red slugcat chuckled in response to his mate's pouting expression. I'll get you a new one in the near future, I promise, he said, jokingly. Survivor sighed, then nodded slowly. Carefully, Hunter lowered Glimmer to the floor. Surprisingly, the mouse didn't immediately dash off. Instead, it looked up at the slugcats, tilting its head. Go on, you're free, Hunter told it, hoping it would understand. After a short moment of staring, Glimmer walked over to Survivor, hugging his leg. He laughed, bent down, and petted the mouse in response. Maybe you'd like to come with us? He asked the mouse, and to Hunter's surprise, it almost seemed to understand him, perking up and squeaking happily. Hunter could not believe his eyes. When were you going to tell me you have such a skill in taming? He had heard stories from NSH of the ancients taming even lizards back in the day, however, they might have been more domesticated back then. That's usually something my brother is very good at, Survivor responded, laughing. It's good to see some of his talent rub off on me. Humming, he handed the spear he found off the ground to Hunter, who took it. With a shared nod and a squeak from Glimmer, the trio walked through the exit pipe, leaving the scavenger corpses in the darkness. The next room was bigger than the last, containing a sort of second floor with platforms above their heads. They walked deeper into the room, Hunter leading the way, Survivor in the middle, holding the lantern, and Glimmer in the back. Hunter heard a noise, he knew he did, somewhere in the darkness of the room. He held a paw up, coming to a stop. Survivor turned around, watching their rear, while Glimmer fearfully cuddled up to his leg. They waited for a while for something to come out of the darkness, but nothing came. Just as the trio relaxed, Hunter chalking the noise up to growing paranoia, something fell down from above them, landing on the floor with a loud thud. The group jumped as Survivor raised his lantern further up, illuminating what had fallen. Another scavenger corpse. The corpse seemed fresh, still leaking blood onto the ground from a hole in its neck. Another thud sounded, and Hunter glanced up to see a silhouette in the dark, crouched down at first but then slowly standing up to its full length. With a growl, Hunter raised his spear, and the figure in the dark did the same. Survivor picked up a piece of rubble from the ground as Glimmer squeaked fearfully and hid behind the duo. The silhouette suddenly moved, slowly inching forward towards the light. Hunter tensed, taking a nervous step back. As the figure got into the light of the lantern, he lowered his spear slightly. The figure was a slugcat, maroon in color and hefting an explosive spear. They had a burn scar over their left eye, the tissue scarred over their eyelid, forcing the eye closed and limiting their vision. They had several more scars all over their body, much like Hunter. Though Hunter's scars were composed of mostly bite marks and cuts, the stranger's scars seemed to be composed of burns and stab wounds. Despite their dark red color, scavenger blood was clearly visible in their fur. Behind them floated a golden device with a single red eye. It studied the slug cats, looking curious. The maroon slug cat tilted its head at them. "You're not scavengers," she growled, her voice even rougher and scratchier than Hunter's. Hunter nervously adjusted his grip on the spear. He had lost his focus, not expecting to run into another slug cat like this. "No, we're not," she growled dangerously, pulling her spear back slightly. "Drop it." She said it through gritted teeth, her gaze flitting between the two slug cats. Hunter heard Survivor's rock drop to the ground and considered his options. The slug cat in front of him seemed to be very experienced, judging by her stance and, of course, all the scavenger corpses seen earlier. As good as Hunter was, this older slug cat probably had him beat in experience alone. With a sigh, he dropped his spear on the ground. The stranger didn't budge. "Both of them." She pointed to the spear on his back. Hunter scowled, unsheathing the explosive spear and very slowly placing it on the ground in front of him. The maroon slug cat seemed content with the show of goodwill, lowering her spear but keeping it clutched in her paw. After a while, she huffed. "It's funny," she mumbled, her stoic voice making it clear she actually found no humor in this situation. "It was shocking enough running into the last slug cat. I did not think I would meet two more," she muttered, quiet enough to barely be heard, like she was talking to herself. Survivor's ears perked up, and he took a cautious step forward. "Another slug cat?" he asked, and the maroon-colored slug cat twitched her ears and turned towards him, growling in warning. Survivor seemed to ignore this. "Were they yellow? About this tall?" he added, waving a paw at around chest height. The stranger nodded her head, twirling her spear in slight impatience. "Seems about right." Survivor laughed happily before taking a deep breath of relief. Hunter turned to look at his mate, and Survivor smiled widely at him. "My brother, Hunter. My brother is here." He embraced the red slug cat, pulling him into a hug. "He never left. He kept looking for me, Survivor trailed off, seeming to come to a realization. He quickly turned to the stranger, who seemed to be rapidly losing interest in their interaction. "Do you know in which direction he went?" Survivor asked, almost seeming a bit desperate. The maroon slug cat clicked her tongue, seeming stuck in deep thought for a moment, before responding. "He wanted to know the way to that odd metal box, standing tall to the north." She itched a scar on her leg with the handle of her spear. "I happen to know of a nearby path that leads towards the legs of the structure, so I lead him there." "That's good of you," Hunter said, smiling slightly. Feeling relieved that the stranger in front of him wasn't a completely emotionless and unfeeling slug cat. She growled in response, scowling slightly. "I only did so because he seemed too weak to defend himself." She said this as if trying to clarify her good deed. "He also reminded me of." The stranger trailed off, her face turning very pained for a moment before she turned away. "Never mind." Hunter tilted his head but decided that pressing the issue probably wasn't a good idea. "You should come with us," Survivor suddenly said, smiling warmly at the stranger. Hunter glanced back, giving his mate a bewildered look. The maroon stranger barked a laugh, looking at the slug cats with an odd look. "Now why would I do that?" She gestured around the dark room, smirking. "This place is perfect for ambushing scavs." She spat the last word with venom, like the word itself disgusted her. "More and more keep coming, and more I shall kill." The stranger laughed wickedly. Hunter recoiled slightly. He didn't want this stranger to travel with them. She was dangerous. Survivor took a careful step forward. "We're heading to meet 5 Pebbles." Hunter turned to Survivor incredulously. "Stop trying to recruit her." The maroon slug cat stopped laughing and looked at Survivor, whose face turned into a scowl again. 5, what now?" She said it, uncharacteristically confused. Hunter repressed his laughter, scared of how the stranger would react to mockery. "They're an iterator, like looks to the moon." Survivor added, like it would clear anything up at all. The stranger's scowl fell away completely as she scrunched her nose and narrowed her eyes, looking even more confused. "Iterator? Looks too? What the hell are you talking about, kid?" For once, she wasn't stoic or furious, she was just utterly bewildered. Survivor glanced back at Hunter, giving him a look that said, "Help me out, please." After a moment's thought, he supposed he could see why Survivor was trying to make her come along. She was obviously a strong and capable fighter, and if Hunter's disease made him too weak to fight, having another companion would seriously help. Hunter sighed, deciding to step in. "Look, you have a vendetta against the scavengers, right?" he said, posing it like a question, even if the answer was obvious. "Yeah." Her scowl came back twofold as she huffed angrily. "You got a problem with it?" The paw holding her spear tightened. "Are you some kind of scavenger or something?" Hunter rushed to correct the record. "Not at all. See, I used to know an iterator. They live inside the big metal boxes, like the one you helped guide his brother to." He pointed to Survivor, who nodded. The stranger relaxed slightly, nodding to Hunter, seeming curious about where this was heading. "They told me about how scavengers are drawn to the top of the boxes, or cans, as the iterators call them. My iterator friend had problems with them moving in at the top of his can. Often the leader of the tribe will reside that far up, a sort of status symbol, I suppose." He added that the stranger was perking up, seeming way more interested. "You see, we have a guide." As if on cue, the overseer popped out of the ground, looking curiously around the room. "That can lead us to 5 Pebbles, the iterator closest to this area, the iterator it seemed his brother also wanted to travel towards. I guess my point is, we all have business to take care of, and it all has to do with 5 Pebbles can," Hunter said, seeing the maroon slugcat stroking her chin in deep thought. "So, why not travel together? That way, we can all get what we want." Survivor looked over at Hunter, giving him a smile but also looking a bit unsure. Was it really a good idea to call for a war on top of 5 Pebbles can? No, it wasn't. But if they wanted the stranger to come with them, they needed to offer them something they wanted, and the only thing she seemed to want to do was kill scavengers. After a long moment, the stranger shrugged. "Ah, what the hell?" She stepped forward, reaching out a paw towards Hunter and flashing a wicked grin. "You've got yourself a deal." Hesitating slightly, Hunter grasped the outstretched paw, only for it to tighten into an iron grip as he was pulled closer to the maroon slugcat. She stared him deep in the eyes, her scowl back on her face. "Just don't keep me from killing any scavengers, got it?" Her voice was low and dangerous. "What's with this addiction to scavengers?" Hunter thought, nodding rapidly. The stranger's grin returned as she let go of his paw, letting him take a step back, massaged the sore appendage, and leaned down to pick up his dropped weapons. Survivor didn't seem to notice any of this, as he stepped forward with a bright smile on his face. "Welcome to the team." He said this as he shook her paw. "I'm Survivor, and that's Hunter." She nodded, hesitating for a short moment before gesturing to herself. "Artificer." Her eyes seemed to catch a glimpse of the small mouse, hiding from her sight behind Survivor's legs. I didn't think those could be tamed." Artificer looked back at Survivor. "Guess you really are the brother of that other one then? Taming everything in sight." Survivor smiled, chirping happily. "That's just like him." The overseer suddenly went back underground before popping up in front of the group, bouncing a few times before showing the shelter symbol along with an arrow. Hunter started walking in the direction the overseer was pointing, having picked up his spears. "Guess we should get going. I don't want to get caught in the rain." Survivor noticed Artificer catching sight of the lump on Hunter's back and frowning. Hunter turned around, looking confused. "Something wrong?" Artificer scoffed, walking past Hunter towards the pipe. "Nothing at all." She said it with a snort and snappy. "Very impatient." Hunter muttered after Artificer had gone through the pipe, and he was sure she couldn't hear him. Survivor chuckled as the 2 slugcats followed her through the pipe. Artificer wasn't yet sure what to make of her new traveling companions. The white one, Survivor, was easygoing, friendly, very chatty, and ultimately naive. Naive, just like his brother, whom she couldn't remember the name of, despite the fact they only met a few cycles ago. She blatantly ignored the small pang of sadness in her chest at this realization. He had been naive too. but at least he had also been friendly and easygoing. However, he'd also been short, skinny, and weak. At least Survivor seemed a bit more built to handle the wild. But he hadn't judged her for her actions, he just simply didn't partake in fighting something about pacifism. She remembered the time he had stopped her from killing a black lizard, giving it a few centipedes until it saw him as its owner. He had cried and hugged the lizard tightly when she threatened it, feeling it was getting too snappy towards the young slug cat. In the end, his innocent nature reminded her of nothing. It reminded her of nothing. She does wish she could remember the little guy's name, however. Meanwhile, the red and scarred one, Hunter, was cautious, quiet, and more cynical. He seemed capable, but probably sick too. Last she checked, slug cats weren't meant to have giant, pulsating growths out of their backs. His reason for visiting 5 whatever the hell is probably to get them to cure him. Whatever the case, Hunter obviously didn't trust her, which suited her fine enough. She didn't trust him either. He judged her for her unending war against the scavengers, she could tell he did, and it made her angry. He didn't even know anything about the whole story why the scavs had to die, but he still felt the need to judge her. Then there was the tamed mouse, Glimmer, as Survivor had proudly introduced it. She glanced back, it was settled on Survivor's shoulder, squeaking from time to time. When it noticed she was watching it, it squeaked quietly in fear, curling up under her intense glare. Glimmer was scared of her, but then again, the little mouse seemed scared of everything and everyone, apart from Survivor. Looking further back, she caught Hunter staring at her. When he noticed her staring back, he turned his head, looking into the darkness instead. Narrowing her eyes, she looked forward again. Whatever, she didn't need their trust, she simply needed their guidance. Or, more specifically, the guidance of the Overseer. If she thought really hard, she felt like she remembered having seen something like the Yellow Guide, but blue-tinted, staring at her. Probably nothing, my memories are just getting bad. She abandoned the train of thought and focused on the important parts of the upcoming trip. If what Hunter said was true, then the leader of the local scavs might sit on top of the metal structure. If she could find a way to get up there. Oh, the glorious carnage she would commit. Artificer smirked at the thought of shoving her explosive spear down the leader of the scavengers' throat and watching them choke on it before they would finally explode into a gory mess once the fuse ran out. Then maybe she'd rig their whole colony with explosives and blow them all to smithereens. Though she guessed the Iterator probably wouldn't approve of that action, it would probably be worth it anyways, she'd have to think about it. The point was, once she was through with them, they would tell horror stories about her. After all, they already carved her on the walls of their hideouts, along with a written warning. She couldn't read much of the warning, but she knew enough of the scavengers' language to make out her nickname, the Red Death. She liked that name, it suited her more than Artificer ever did. She imagined them telling stories of her brutality and ruthlessness, about how many of their kind she has slain, and how many more will no doubt follow. Some of them will act tough, saying they are not afraid, that they could kill her easily. But when they are out scavenging and they actually hear her explosions in the distance, they'll cower and hide like the true cowards they are. Artificer chuckled at the thought, pointedly ignoring the confused looks the other slug cats and Glimmer were sending her. Finally, the Overseer pointed her around one last corner, and around it lay the shelter. She went in first, settling down in a corner. The drone, that had been following her for many cycles, landed next to her, entering its own hibernation, or whatever you could call it when a robot falls asleep. Taking a deep breath, she regurgitated the lantern she'd kept in her stomach, placing it on the floor. To ambush the scavs, she had to keep a low profile. Carrying around a light source in her hand would get her spotted easily. In her stomach, the light from the lantern disappeared. Though getting spotted on purpose, for the adrenaline rush of cutting a swathe through several scavs at once, was always fun as well. The other slug cats and Glimmer soon crept through, picking a corner next to hers and settling down, cuddling into each other. Survivor placed the lantern on the floor, next to Artificer's own. Hunter quickly fell asleep, seemingly exhausted from the longer than usual cycle. Glimmer settled into Survivor's side, closing its eyes and gently snoring. Survivor, however, stayed awake, seeming torn about something. Eventually he made eye contact with her, tilting his head questioningly and sending her a quiet invitation to join in on the snuggle. She stilled for a moment, surprised by the invitation, before shaking her head, and he nodded respectfully back. "Good night, Artificer," he said quietly, nuzzling into Hunter and sighing, shortly falling asleep. Artificer said nothing. She just watched the sleeping slugcats for a moment before deciding to curl up on the cold floor. To many creatures, hibernating was probably a relief, a much-needed break from the brutal, infinite cycles of the world outside, and a way to heal injuries and recover energy. It was hard for her to fall asleep. Her scars itched irritatingly, her ears rang constantly, and she had a hard time lying still long enough for sleep to claim her. If she did manage to hibernate, hibernation meant dreaming, and dreams, more often than not, meant nightmares. Nightmares of the day she lost everything she cared about, nightmares that always came back to remind her of her failures. She barely had truly good dreams anymore, about what she used to have and what she forever lost and is never getting back. Though she supposed they would count more as bittersweet than happy, the only good dreams she sometimes did get were dreams of killing scavengers, ripping them apart, and eating their guts. She no longer dreamed of happier times, like she used to when she felt melancholy and was in denial about it all. Now, all she can feel is boiling rage. It burns underneath her skin, and her very soul burns with passionate hatred. "I will set it straight. I will slaughter my way to their leader, then I will kill them too. That will teach them, it will make them fear me, truly fear me. Then, and only then, will she have her redemption, only then will she feel satisfaction and happiness again." Artificer closed her eyes, her body shaking with rage. Only then will she no longer feel an empty hole in her heart, in her very soul, only then will she feel whole again. She repeated these thoughts in her head over and over until she finally drifted off to sleep, dreaming of ambushing and killing lone scavengers, separated from the rest of their group. Some would fight, but most would just tremble in fear, chittering desperately in an attempt to call for mercy. Their pleas fell on deaf ears, as she slaughtered the helpless cowards. In the end, no matter what the scavs did in her dreams, it mattered to her as little as what they did in real life. They bled and died all the same.